summary about what your experience was like?
So my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a few years before my sister and I were born. As a result of childbirth, it progressed her disease to some degree. And multiple sclerosis basically is a neurological disorder. It attacks your spine and your brain. It puts lesions on your brain and your spine and could impair your ability to walk, to see, impairs your memory as well. So basically, I guess when I was younger, I didn't really understand much about my mom's disability, but felt it most at school because I was being teased by other students because my mom relied on either a cane or a walker or a motorized wheelchair to basically get around. So that kind of set my sister and I apart from other students. So lots of fighting growing up to, defend my mom. So it's one thing to like talk about somebody's mother, but when you talk about their mother and they already have a disability, a visible disability that you're working with, just like infuriated me basically. So lots of fighting with other people because I was getting teased about my mom's disability. Once I kind of got over that, I took on a role of a caretaker. I would say maybe at the age of 12, my mom had dropped out of college because of her disability and decided to go back to earn her bachelor's degree. So we became pretty much latchkey kids. I would have to help my sister with her homework. I cooked dinner because my mother was like too exhausted when she got in to really be able to do anything else. And another thing that comes along with multiple sclerosis, like severe fatigue comes along with it. You can't be in like really hot environments, so just her being outside during the summertime just caused what we call an exacerbation, and it kind of multiple sclerosis can go into remission where you improve, or it can exacerbate itself and that your symptoms just get a whole lot worse all of a sudden. So lots of things with that. So I had to be very independent, but I would say that one of the benefits to being raised by someone with a disability was that I learned about advocacy really quickly. Um, my mom, during the time that my mom was disabled early on, there weren't curb cuts in sidewalks or the way that you have to create like a stall for a disabled person in a bathroom, like those things didn't exist at the time to accommodate a wheelchair, or some buildings didn't have elevators in them. So someone with a disability could get to a different floor, whatever the case may be. My mother was just a very vocal person and made sure to like get stuff instituted, like on Howard University's campus. They'd have to like relocate all the classes down to a certain level, down to the first floor, so she could access the classroom. And as a result of all of her fighting, like with that administration at Howard, a lot of changes were made to accommodate like people in wheelchairs and things like that. And I forget, well, I remember my mom pulling into a shopping center, let's say, and you have designated parking spaces, and someone who doesn't have a disability, their car is already in a disabled person's parking space. My mother had these things that looked like tickets, and she would like force us to get out the car and put one of those tickets on the car. So it would prompt the person to read, and it basically said like, someone with a disability needs to use this parking space. So I'm like very sensitive to those kind of things. Like when my friends park in parking spaces, like I criticize them heavily because I know what my mom went through. She needed to be able to park in that particular space because it was the closest to the door. The parking space was wider. It could accommodate her wheelchair so that she could then get out, get in the wheelchair, and then go wherever it was that she needed to go. So I'm very critical of that with other people because I just think it's insensitive. So those are some of the things that I experienced. And there was a bit of rebellion as well. Why me? Why did my mother have to have a disability? Why couldn't it be somebody else's mother? But now that I'm older and have more wisdom and can reflect back on the experience, I basically realized that it built a lot of character in me.
Okay, so you talked about like some of the criticism that you had, like why your mother. So how hard was it to for you to watch your mother just like struggle with the disease for so long?
Um, it was difficult. I remember an incident in high school. Um, I would try to discourage my mother from doing certain things because I knew that, like, if she couldn't pick something up and it dropped, something could happen to her. And I remember her. This is in my 12th grade year in high school. She had some like potatoes boiling on the stove. We weren't even home at the time. We were in school, and she tried to remove the pot from the stove so that she could drain the boiling water out because she was intending to make potato salad or mashed potatoes or something like that. And she dropped that pot of boiling water on her legs. So as a result, like that confined her to a wheelchair permanently. She was never able to walk after that just because of the surgery that it took, because of the skin grafts, because the burns were like so severe. But because of the way multiple sclerosis attacks your body, she didn't even feel how painful the burns were. I could just look from my own personal observation and see that these were third-degree burns that we were dealing with. And she didn't realize it, but I realized it. So she was in the hospital, I want to say, from December to March or April of the following year, and required a wheelchair all the time as a result of that. And then the disease started attacking her eyesight and she became legally blind. So I was like writing all the checks to pay bills and things like that because she like didn't have the use of her hand anymore and couldn't really see to balance her checkbook. So I learned a lot of life skills as a result of that, but it was very difficult to watch. But when she finally passed away, it was one of those situations where I was relieved because she had suffered so long with it. She actually lived beyond the age that she was supposed to. Normally, people with multiple sclerosis kind of go out of here pretty quickly, but she was able to endure through having the disease for a significant period of time. But then it did get to a point where she required like 24-hour care, and then we had to like shift her to a nursing home where she could get that care around the clock and being able to visit and going on with your life when you have your own family, that kind of thing. So difficult, balancing, and we kind of shifted roles. I kind of became the parent, and basically became the child in the situation. So making all the decisions on her behalf in terms of her care and where it was going to be and that kind of stuff. So I don't regret it. We had her around as long as we could, but definitely made me a lot more sensitive to like people with disabilities and just people that are different, regardless of the differences, sexual orientation, your physical capabilities and that, race, ethnicity has made me a lot more sensitive person as a result.
So I just wanted to like expound on the idea of you being sensitive to people with disabilities. Like, how do you interact with them now? Like,
as a result, I just treat people with disabilities the same as I treat everyone else. They want to, they want to be greeted the same way everybody else is greeted. Not to turn away or anything like that. They don't want to be ogled. I know that was a big issue. We go in a store and like kids or somebody that hadn't seen my mother before would just stare. And my mother would always take it as a teaching opportunity. She talked to them about like what her disability was about. So I think about like the students that are in our CRI program here at Parkdale. I think about the students that are in the ortho suite. Who you can see have physical disabilities, and students that are in the autism program, and they want to be treated just the same as everybody else.
Okay. So how do you feel like it affect like just taking responsibility when your mom was like sick? How do you feel like it helped you in your future?
Um, well, in terms of just helping with my future, I feel like my mother was always one of those people that, you know, pushed us to seize an opportunity when it was available to you. You know, like don't sit back. You know, constantly push forward, and having to watch somebody who overcame all the obstacles with a disability get her college degree. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional now. And be able to move through and be a good mom, regardless of her disability. I think that's why I push you guys all the time. Because if she could do it, and I could do it in those circumstances, then you all should be able to do it. You know, so being with somebody who was in a wheelchair, I remember my mother climbing steps. It would take her half an hour to climb these steps to take us to dance class. And it didn't matter. She'd just climb those steps. And we'd go up and start our lesson, and she'd finally get to the top of the steps. So just the sacrifice that she made on our behalf, dance lessons. Um, she didn't have a lot of resources. And I can remember she bought 2 desks from a thrift store, put them in the basement, got all this workforce for the summer. We had school in the basement. And her goal was, I got to make sure that you're prepared for the next year. She just did that all the time. She wanted to make sure that we were cultured. So even though it was a struggle to maybe go to the Kennedy Center or be exposed to things, she made sure that we did that as well. So I think that's why I tend to not want to listen to like student excuses about why things can't get done, because I watched somebody who had way more challenges get a whole lot of stuff done just through perseverance and determination. And so that's how I look at it. We've had students that immigrate to this country from dire circumstances, and they push themselves to just keep going. I'll never forget a student in the IB program who had, I think she was from Sudan, and she and her mother came over. They had come from a refugee camp. She didn't know anything, didn't know how to take public transportation, just all the different challenges that she had. But just watching her like persevere through those obstacles because her education was important to her. So I've learned just not to take things for granted. Education, opportunities, advocacy, how important that is, and speaking up for yourself. Just watching my mother advocate for herself for all those years.
Thank you.